Now a WRTV Investigate special, Kids in Our Care, Pressing for Change.
The uncertainty of going home or not, I was in survival mode.
More than 13,000 children are in Indiana's child welfare system. Some of those kids aren't in safe situations.
Kinsley was locked up. She was not given food. She lived in her own filth with insects.
A little girl taken from her foster family and put back with her birth family died in her home.
It could have been prevented.
And she's not the only child to suffer that fate.
And there's no accountability.
Some DCS caseworkers overwhelmed from the start.
And they were like, here's 17 kids, go.
Why'd you leave DCS?
I was burnout.
It's not just DCS. Multiple people are responsible for protecting kids from abuse and neglect.
Juvenile judges can make or break families, and that is the hardest thing I had to do.
So tonight, WRTV Investigates is asking,
is the state doing everything it can to protect children?
Welcome to this WRTV Investigates special, Kids in Our Care, Pressing for Change. I'm Kara Kenny. This is a pivotal year when it comes to child welfare in Indiana. Governor Mike Braun named Adam Krupp as the new director at the Indiana Department of Child Services. At the State House, lawmakers are debating bills right now aimed at better protecting kids from abuse and neglect, while child advocates actively testify and push for the legislation to go through. Tonight, we're taking your concerns straight to DCS, a judge, and a former caseworker. Before we get to that, we need to show you what's at stake here. Dozens of children die in our state every year from abuse and neglect. In fact, in 2025, we know of at least 8 people charged in connection to child abuse or neglect deaths in Marion County alone. In January, a 2-year-old Indianapolis toddler died of suspected child neglect. Skylar Gardner's body was found under a dresser. Her biological mother is charged with her murder. It appears DCS did not have prior involvement with the family, but the agency was involved in a case of a little girl named Kinsley. Investigators say Kinsley Welty died in April 2024 from malnutrition and dehydration. That was about 5 months after she was removed from her foster home and returned to her birth mother. Now, Kinsley's extended family spoke to WRTV Investigates' Rachel Wilkerson about her history in the system and why they say DCS deserves some of the blame.
Kinsley's death, it could have been prevented.
5-year-old Kinsley Welty meant the world to her foster families.
Kinsley was, she was just a ray of sunshine for us.
Can you say thank you?
Kinsley repeatedly was in and out of foster care. She and her brother spent 5 months with Sarah and Ben Gessel.
She loved books. She loved to be held and cuddled.
One call from their caseworker and the kids were gone.
And it was very quick. It was very, very sudden, very heart-wrenching.
Kinsley was reunited with her mother, Toni McClure. Fast forward to April 9th, Kinsley was found dead in her southwest Indianapolis home. Riley Hospital reports Kinsley lost so much weight that she weighed more at 2.5 years old than she did at 5. Now, McClure is charged with her daughter's murder. She faces the possibility of life without parole.
It just drives you crazy because it's like, why?
McClure also is charged with neglect resulting in death along with Kinsley's grandmother, Tammy Halsey. That's because investigators say McClure or Halsey often locked the girl up in a closet, duct taped her, and denied her food. The refrigerator was even chained closed. Conditions Kinsley's aunt, Carrie Hogan, says the family is still grappling with.
But I can't imagine being a 5-year-old child being locked in a closet, covered in your own feces, starving to death, and not to mention you have lice crawling all over your body.
These are like documentary level conditions, right? These are atrocious, just hell, right? And but for me, it's that idea that nobody answered that cry for help.
McClure has a history of abuse, In 2018, she was formally charged with neglect when Kinsley was just 3 weeks old. The officer said the home was in one of the worst conditions he'd ever seen and noted baby Kinsley's poor weight. Her mother served 21 days in jail for that case. Going back to the day Kinsley was found dead, Indiana's Department of Child Services visited the home but never laid eyes on the 5-year-old.
It's insane to me. Five months with no eyes on a child that's been placed in the care of somebody who has a previous record of neglect and abuse does not make sense to me.
I feel like DCS owes it to the children to say, you know, we're coming back tomorrow at this time. We want this child here. We want to physically lay eyes on them. It should be mandatory.
We took that general concern to Sarah Sailors, who at the time was a chief deputy director at DCS. In March, she took a job with another state agency. Sailors could not comment on Kinsley's specific case, but she told us parents' rights can take precedence over the power of DCS.
What is the protocol when a caseworker visits a home? Do they have to lay eyes on a child? And if they don't, what happens after that?
Good question. So I'm assuming you're talking about when there's an assessment, right? And we don't have any formal court involvement yet. And I think this is another place where I think there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about how the system works, right? And so thinking about our constitutional rights as individuals and as parents to be able to raise our children the way you see fit, there are statutory requirements and, for lack of a better word, hoops that DCS has to jump through to be able to see a child.
DCS is typically the agency people think of when it comes to protecting Indiana's kids, but a lot of people are involved in deciding the future of children in the system. Judges ultimately have the power to rule on where a child will live, but often many voices are involved, including DCS caseworkers, court-appointed special advocates, foster parents, biological parents, attorneys, and service providers like therapists. Now, all of these professionals must work together to make decisions on behalf of a child.
Linda Polovic of Carmel got into the child welfare system to save children's lives.
I wanted to help kids.
Linda volunteered in Hamilton and Tipton counties as a CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate.
Our job is to go to court and advocate for the best interest of the child. So we're independent from DCS. A lot of people don't know that.
DCS cases are confidential. Court proceedings are closed to the public. Linda says the county assigned her cases, children who were suspected victims of abuse and neglect. She got to know the kids, their birth parents, foster parents, neighbors, and therapists.
Anybody that might be able to give us some input on what's going on with that child.
Next, she'd make a recommendation to the judge. Should the child stay with a relative, go to a foster family, or be reunited with their birth family, what the system calls reunification. Linda noticed a push toward reunification, even if it risked the child's safety.
As the CASA, we can make recommendations all day long, but we don't have any actual power.
So who has the power then?
DCS and the judge.
Judges say these decisions weigh heavily on them too. Judge Dana Kenworthy was not involved in any of Linda's cases, but in Grant County, Judge Kenworthy oversaw thousands of cases involving abused and neglected children.
I'm trying to make a decision that does two things. One is protect the parent's fundamental right to raise their children and also protect the best interest and safety of the child.
How difficult is that?
That's immensely difficult.
With the lives of children in her hands, Judge Kenworthy says she took into account all the evidence from DCS, CASAs, bio and foster parents, and what the child had to say.
Everyone starts on equal ground, and I want to hear all of it.
In many abuse and neglect cases, the parents are addicted to drugs, so a judge may help families get services like drug addiction treatment and counseling.
I think the system can do better and needs to do better, and the challenge there is that we need more available service providers.
When a court decides to permanently remove a child from their biological parents, it's usually after they've been given numerous chances to get clean.
To make that ultimate decision that will permanently sever that relationship is really hard. but that's the job.
A permanent safe home can mean reunification with the birth parents, legal guardianship, or adoption. Data obtained by WRTV Investigate shows the majority of cases end in reunification. In December of last year, 63% ended in reunification, compared to 27% for guardianship and 10% were adoptions.
What's one of the biggest misconceptions about the child welfare system?
I think the biggest one is that the system is designed to remove kids from their families, because we know that removing a child from their home and removing a child from their parents is traumatic to the child. So if we can keep a child home safely, we do that first.
Kenworthy is now a judge in the Indiana Court of Appeals and occasionally handles child abuse and neglect cases. As for Linda Polovic, she chose to leave the child welfare system. But she's still pressing for change.
Imagine being a child and you're living in limbo for years.
On March 17th, she testified before a state Senate committee in support of legislation aimed at reducing the amount of time kids spend in foster care.
These are not just someone else's children. They're all our children.
Just created so much depression and anxiety in me. That was like a constant battle.
And that battle has led to turnover within DCS. The impact that has on agency employees and kids in the system. Next on this WRTV special, Kids in Our Care, Pressing for Change. Welcome back to our WRTV special, Kids in Our Care, Pressing for Change. When we spoke with people who work in the system, many of them told us heavy caseloads contribute to caseworker turnover.
After seeing stories on the news about abused and neglected kids, Mariah Coons wanted to help. So the Muncie mom worked for DCS for 4 years, mostly as a family case manager.
And they were like, here's 17 kids, go.
Mariah says at times she worked 60 hours a week, juggling as many as 29 kids at once, kids that were victims of horrific child abuse and neglect.
Just created so much depression and anxiety in me. That was like a constant battle.
Mariah wanted to protect kids, but she says DCS's approach made it difficult.
It's reunification over everything. And sometimes that meant that I felt like children were getting hurt in the process.
But kids and parents took out their anger on Mariah, including one child who assaulted her.
She sprained my wrist. It put me in the ER.
She took out a protective order against a biological parent after DCS removed 3 of his children.
The dad threatened to kill me multiple times.
Did you feel supported by your supervisors?
No. In the time I was with DCS, so just over 4.5 years, I had over 9 supervisors.
Mariah saw turnover among her fellow caseworkers too.
They can't support their people. And there's sometimes that I wouldn't even take the time to learn their name because I knew it was only going to be a matter of weeks before they were gone.
Caseworker turnover can impact kids in the system. Allie Leonard knows firsthand.
The uncertainty of going home or not was like, I was in survival mode.
She's a former foster youth who lives in Bloomington.
My caseworker actually left the country in the middle of the night, and someone else had to come in the next day to very disheveled files and piece together my life.
Throughout high school, she was in the foster care system.
What did you see that concerned you?
The lack of knowledge and retention. A caseworker is a position that I think has very high turnover, and for me, that was pretty detrimental to my case.
Allie is now thriving and even volunteers for the Commission on Improving the Status of Children, where she works alongside DCS.
A lot of people have described the system as broken. Do you think it's broken?
No, I think the system is doing the best it can.
DCS is working to keep its workers. In fiscal year 2024, the turnover rate was 37% among family case managers, up from 33% in 2023.
Introducing Worker to Worker Indiana.
The agency launched a new worker-to-worker hotline. Current employees can talk to retired caseworkers. DCS is also overhauling its training. Mariah Coons supports these types of changes.
I was also a caseworker for DCS.
She's making her voice heard at the statehouse this spring. Even though she's left child welfare, she's pushing lawmakers to improve the system for those still in it.
We don't have time to wait. These kids need us to act now.
Why'd you want to share your story?
I want people to have more compassion for caseworkers. Sometimes the choices that are made are not the caseworker's fault. There's so many times that I had to do something that I was not comfortable with and that I knew was wrong and that was going to put a child in danger.
Coming up on Kids in Our Care, pressing for change, we talk to foster families who say their goal is to provide a safe home for kids, but why they say that's not as easy as it sounds. Welcome back to Kids in Our Care, pressing for change. Many foster parents work to be part of the solution in giving kids a safe home, but they tell me they're often treated like babysitters and feel like they're not heard.
There's so many other things that we want to address.
Kat Moman is a Brown County mother of 7 kids, 3 biological, 4 adopted through the child welfare system. She's fought to make sure her adopted son has a relationship with his brother, a sibling DCS didn't notify her about initially.
Siblings deserve to know that they have siblings out there.
The former foster mom says she tried to work with DCS to set up visits.
Kept going up the chain, and they only let us see him once a month for, I think it was like 2 hours.
Feeling stuck, Kat filed a complaint with the DCS Ombudsman, an office that operates independently of DCS under the Department of Administration.
Siblings are not being notified that there's another sibling out there, and I don't think that's right.
In Kat's case, the Ombudsman conducted an in-depth review and found there is merit to the complaint, as you were not contacted to establish sibling visits. The Ombudsman made a recommendation to DCS regarding this issue, but had no power to enforce it.
Okay, they violated it, so what is the punishment, for lack of better words, for violating it? I mean, as a foster parent, we have had our license threatened for policy violation.
Were you satisfied with the response you got?
No. No, but there's nowhere else to go.
In 2014, I sat down with the DCS Ombudsman.
You can't actually yourself implement changes in a case.
No.
But the current Ombudsman, Shoshana Everhart, declined our request for an interview.
Taxpayers are the ones paying for your salary speaks pretty negatively.
Andrea and Dana McAtee of Whiteland also served as foster parents.
If you speak up for a child, you're told you're a foster parent, you're a babysitter, and you shouldn't have any concerns about the welfare of this child.
What's your response to that?
We're not in this to be glorified babysitters. We're in this to make a difference in a child's life.
The couple says they experienced discrimination as well.
We got a new caseworker, and she let me know that she did not believe in same-sex couples and told me that she was doing the Lord's work by taking this child out of our home.
The state says the caseworker resigned in May 2023. Dana and Andrea eventually adopted 2 children. They say they feel comfortable speaking out now because they're no longer in the system.
What needs to change?
A complete overhaul.
An overhaul is underway. In January, Adam Krupp was appointed by Governor Mike Braun as the new director of DCS. We asked to sit down with Krupp, but the agency denied that request. However, the former high school teacher recently testified in front of a legislative committee. He said since taking over at DCS, he's heard stories from people who say the child welfare system is broken.
My commitment is to fix it. I'm not going to point the blame or point a finger at anybody. I'm not pointing a finger at schools. I'm not pointing a finger at courts. I'm not pointing a finger at this body. All of us just need to partner together to do what's right.
The number for the Indiana Child Abuse and Neglect Hotline is on your screen, 1-800-800-5556. And obviously, if it's an emergency, call 911. While we were not able to speak with Krupp, we go back to our interview with former DCS Deputy Chief Sarah Sailors. She told us about the challenges at the agency and the improvements they're trying to make.
Hi, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
We feel you deserve to hear from the agency tasked with protecting our most vulnerable children.
Do you think the system is broken?
I don't think the system is broken. I think there are lots of opportunities to improve what we do.
Why'd you want to sit down with us?
Because I love DCS and I love the work that we do. I want you to know we're human. We are people who want to do great things for kids and families.
We asked about those people on the front lines, DCS caseworkers. Remember Mariah, who left DCS?
People are leaving because they don't feel safe.
We have recently hired a security specialist who's helping us identify not just personal level safety, things that we can do, train our staff better.
The agency is addressing turnover by creating a worker-to-worker hotline, adding a stipend for on-call workers, and revamping its training. Some families complain to us about children languishing in the system for years. DCS data shows children spend an average of 457 days in foster care. That's roughly 15 months.
What is DCS doing to address the length of time that children are in the system?
It's complex, right? Because we know that kids who are adopted spend a lot longer time in our system than kids who end in guardianships.
We also asked about what some feel is a big push toward reunification with birth parents.
When we intervene, we are intervening to protect children, not to punish parents.
DCS is required by law to attempt to reunify.
Yes, absolutely. Ultimately, we follow court orders, right? So court either authorizes us to take certain action or to not take action. I think that is a misconception.
And Rachel Wilkerson asked Sarah Sailors the question that's really at the root of this special. Is the state doing enough to protect children?
I think we're doing everything we can that's within our statutory authority to do what we can to protect children. I think that there are opportunities always, right? We all, as individuals and as professionals and as agencies, continuous improvement. When we know better, we do better.
State lawmakers are debating ways to better protect Hoosier children. Numerous bills are pending. This is what supporters say those bills would do. House Bill 1605 would decrease the amount of time children spend in foster care. House Bill 1152 would increase how much information DCS must provide the public about child deaths. The purpose of House Bill 1412 is to strengthen penalties for employees and volunteers who knowingly fail to report child abuse. And House Bill 1273 would create a child welfare task force to study and report on these issues. When it comes to the safety of children, Indiana is a mandatory reporting state. That means we are all responsible for reporting abuse and neglect. Thank you for joining us and learning about what kids in the child welfare system face and what can be done to better protect kids in our care.